Paltrocast.
Gia, how's your day going aside from talking to wrestling media today?
It's going great, but I enjoy talking to wrestling media. It's part of the job, and I like to get together with other journalists, other broadcasters, and I take my notes.
You do. You are a great interviewer, very likable, yet you get to the bottom of the story.
Oh, yeah.
You're also a trained wrestler, and we are seeing you wrestle very soon in a tag match. Now, when did you start honing your interview and broadcasting skills?
I actually have always been involved in broadcast journalism. My mother actually owns a newspaper, and I've even been a published writer for her. But I've always done a little bit of that. I even have a degree in journalism in college. But I've always done a little bit of it. I've always been a talker. I've always been I guess journalism is a more eloquent form of gossip. So I've always been that.
You should trademark that one. You said journalism is a more eloquent form of gossip.
Yes.
Wrestling is gossip, isn't it? Theater meets gossip.
Oh, yes. It is Broadway and blood. Absolutely.
Broadway and blood. Well said. Well, so many great Impact events coming up because we're seeing you wrestle as part of the tag match. There's the Vegas show, there's the Orlando stuff, etc. Which are you most excited for?
Oh my gosh. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to go back to the 80s, back to IPWF, and see Rusty Iron and Rip Razor back in action. But if I'm the most excited about one thing, it's the return of TNA. I mean, and that's not even that's an understatement being excited about it. I get to be a TNA knockout. That's incredible. And there is no telling actually there is telling. This year is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
This year is going to be historic, unlike any other.
I can imagine so because people are talking about it. A lot of announcements happen, and then 2-3 days later, we don't care. Like summer tours, we're still talking about TNA coming back, and it's still not coming back for another 6 weeks or so. But
right, it's just
when you came into Impact, we first knew, hey, she's an interviewer, and then us who Google go, oh, she's a perfectly trained wrestler who may or may not have known George South. Now, was it initially part of the deal that you were going to transition to wrestling after a while?
It wasn't explicitly part of it, but it was mentioned because I never want to put myself in a box. I want to have everything at my disposal, and I just want to see where things go. I don't want to force anything, just want to go with the flow, see where it takes me. And when I did first have that conversation of, okay, we're going to keep you on board, I mentioned of like, if the opportunity arises, if you feel that I am ready or you want to give me that opportunity, I would like to bump. I would like to wrestle. And they were like, okay, we'll have that in mind. And then it wasn't long before we did it was the second IPWF show, but it was my first one.
So when you came into Impact, was it initially a handshake deal, 1 or 2 tapings and see where it goes?
It was quite literally, well, she's here and she's better than nothing. It was COVID. They didn't have anybody. I was in quarantine with Sami Callihan, Jessica Havoc, and Ace Austin, so they knew I was with their talent. I was there, and they were like, what do we do? I don't know, just put her in front of the camera, see if she does okay. And I did okay enough that they kept bringing me back, and I worked there for about a year before I signed my contract. But that really meant that much more to me that I had worked there for that long, and they were like, okay, we want to keep her on board moving forward.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing, I think, everybody that you just said the name of, but you're all part of this secret wrestling thing that boggles my mind, the secret Ohio/Indiana connection of wrestlers who are all based out of that contingency plan of we want to work full-time in wrestling, but we also have to live in a cheap place. So wrestlers living together in houses in Ohio and or Indiana.
Wow. Oh, yes. The Midwest wrestling scene is so many wrestlers come from the Midwest. And I'm not from here, obviously, but I came up here for that reason, to to be surrounded by all of these minds, all of these people, all this knowledge. And there's so many reputable training schools that you can visit and go to. There is so much to learn, so much to be done in the Midwest. And on top of it, it's cost effective. You start off in the wrestle house, maybe you and 13 other people and one bathroom. Not that I ever had to do that. Good Lord. I just had to do the sorority house. But
Right.
that's part of it. And even now, Ace and I kind of have our own wrestle house where we have other wrestlers kind of moving in with us just to have a little bit of a cheaper rent and get by and do what they got to do. It's all part of the grind.
Now, I know that we're here to talk about Impact and TNA talent, but you could just give a quick yes or no on this. Was Maxwell Jacob Friedman in any of those wrestler houses that you were part of?
I did not live with him, but there was some crossover there with Ace and MJF. Yes.
Got it. Us Long Islanders need to know this stuff.
Yes, it's
Max may or may not have been in this apartment before and made fun of it, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Gia Miller and the ascension and the success and all that. So, being a great on-camera interviewer, what are you thinking about podcasting, broadcasting long-term beyond Impact and TNA?
Oh, it's always on my mind. It's always in the works. Especially now, I'm in the process of kind of transitioning, moving houses, and part of that is to create a larger studio space so that I can do more things like that, like podcasting. And that was something that I learned with my journalism studies in college, doing podcasting, doing hosting of all types. Even had to do the weather a couple times. That's the hardest thing in the world. But I the world is my oyster. I will do anything that I just want to do on any given day. If there's one thing I'm going to do, it's what I want.
So, like Hartman from South Park, you do what you want.
Yes. Respect my authority.
Well done right there. Well, two quick questions, and then I'll let you go. And the first one is there anyone from the TNA Impact roster that you're still hoping to get in the ring with that we haven't seen that great Gia match with?
Well, we're talking to current TNA, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Although there's so much crossover that you never know when the TNA legends are coming back as a surprise. So.
Oh, you're exactly right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Can I say all of them? There are so many. I mean, I've gotten to be in the ring with Deonna Purrazzo, Jordan Grace, Rosemary / Courtney Rush. Just those three alone are enough to I never have to wrestle again. That's incredible. But I would love to be able to get in a TNA ring with Jessica Havoc. And also, even though it might be my last match and it might be my death, Masha Slamovich. I'd love to get in the ring with her.
He is tough. And the last question, kind of a stupid one, but you've had some great nicknames over the years. We've known you as the Glamager, Rhinestone Cowgirl, Mean Gia Miller. Do you have a favorite or preferred nickname?
My favorite one is Glam. It is the one I've had since birth. It was originally the acronym for my government name, Georgia Lee Ann Milton. And then when I got into wrestling, all I wanted to do was make sure that those initials stayed the same. So I became Gia Lee Ann Miller. And Glam, I am every bit the part.
Now, you just made me think of something I never thought about before, that Georgia, if you take the first letter and the last two letters, is Gia. I've never heard Gia being the nickname to Georgia. Are you the first one?
But we can say that I am.
The first Georgia Gia. Well,
I'm the first Gia Georgia.
Thank you for doing what you do. Exciting to see that you'll be wrestling and continuing to interview, and hope to see one of those podcasts happening in the very near future.
Oh, keep an eye out. Thank you for having me.
Paltrocast.